There was a trade that happened this week, fellas. And my question to you is not did the 49ers win the trade? Because I think we can all agree a third round compensatory pick for a talent such as Chase certainly is a win. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they won the trade deadline. Those are two different things. So, Vish, I'm going to ask you, do you think they won in general at the trade deadline? Why or why not?
No, I think they made the best individual trade at the trade deadline, but I still think they needed a secondary piece and they were unable to make that move. And therefore, I think Philadelphia won the trade deadline because they were able to fill a need with an excellent player in Kevin Byard. I think the secondary edge rusher on the other side of Bosa was a need, but I think Gregory was starting to cover that need. I think it was just about getting him more involved and getting him more snaps. He's clearly already more effective than both Drake Jackson and Cleveland Ferrell. I do think acquiring a player of Chase Young's talent at 24 years old for a compensatory pick that's likely going to be a wash if he walks, and giving yourself flexibility in terms of signing him is an outstanding move. It certainly makes the 49ers better. But again, I look at their secondary and I still think they're missing one player in the back end that they can trust as that third cornerback. And that's where I think Philadelphia won the trade deadline because they had one kind of question mark on their defense and weakness on their football team. And they were able to fix that with a player who used to be an all-pro. I don't think he's an all-pro still, but he's still really good and he's a perfect fit for their system, especially with all the quarter, half, and quarters they play. He's a very good half-field safety, very good quarter safety.
Are we talking about just between the Niners and the Eagles, or are we talking about just across the board, every single team in the league?
I would say across
everybody.
You can take it.
You think the Chiefs won it by getting Mecole Hardman back, Larry?
Well, no, but I mean, I want to look at the list here. I
thinking Seattle with Leonard Williams.
I definitely like the fact that Seattle got Leonard Williams and Frank Clark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're a whole lot better for sure. Buffalo did well, I think, too. I mean, Buffalo got Rasul Douglas and Leonard Fournette as a signing. That's pretty good. But I would probably lean towards the 49ers. One, because, look at what teams pay for edge rushers and in free agency. And look what they're paying $1.4 million combined to Randy Gregory and Chase Young. So, I think that's unbelievable. And then look what they gave up. Both deals were free. I mean, the Gregory deal is going to be the equivalent of trading a late sixth or, what was it, a late sixth for a high seventh or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's literally going to be like moving back 3 spots, and you got Denver to pay the money. So that's kind of that's almost like makes you wonder if John Lynch had some, what's going on there? I mean, why is Denver doing the Niners such a favor? And then this trade, there's nobody in the league that wanted Chase Young. Guy's got 5 sacks. He was the second pick in the draft. I mean, either the joke's on the Niners or the Niners paid nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. So, I mean, that's a win. The other thing I would say is, this was like I had a conversation in July with Chris Kosaric, and I said to him, Chris, and I've said this to you guys a couple times, so forgive me if you're hearing this for the second or third time. I said, Chris, you have an awesome number 1 D line, but your backup line, not quite as good. You lost Ebukam and Amenahue and Willis and all these guys. I'm like, are you going to play your number 1 line more than your 2s and your 3s? He's like, no, I'm going to do the same thing I've always done. I'm going to rotate my guys through. You know why? Because if my guys have to go 65, 70 snaps every game, they're not going to make it to the playoffs. And I said, okay. And I had it, I recorded it. You can watch it on my YouTube channel. Well, Nick Bosa against Cincinnati this week, I think played 68 snaps. And he's played 60-plus snaps 4 times this year. The Ram game, and then the last 3 games. So that's exactly what they've done. I basically called it in July. I'm like, dude, you're going to play your number 1 line more, or you're not going to get it done. And sure enough, as soon as there was a little pressure to win games, here comes Bosa for 68 snaps. the threshold that Chris himself said he couldn't be at without, not having any juice come the playoffs. So the Niners were in a desperate mode, even though they may not have. I don't know if that was what the rest of the league thought. But I mean, the 49ers only have 5 sacks and 30 pressures in the last 3 games. So, that's not tremendous. And they were playing Bosa way more snaps than they planned to in July. So they had to make this move. So I think I'll take the Niners as the trade deadline winner, just from the standpoint of they were desperate, and yet they didn't pay desperate kinds of prices. If there were some of these other GMs were a little more savvy and studied the Niners situation, they probably could have held the Niners up for more and didn't. So I don't know if Lynch just is like the most popular guy in the GM meetings and everybody loves him or what. But to me, to get Gregory and Young for nothing, that's and with the need being severe, that's huge, I think.
I think that the 49ers did great in both those trades individually. I just look at overall needs, and I would have preferred a corner. I do think that the asking price for corners was a lot higher probably than they expected. I definitely think that the 49ers did their due diligence and tried to get a corner. I really do believe that. But you have to weigh, future assets versus win now. How much of a need is it? How good is the player? Is their contract expiring? There's so many little nuances that go into it. You can't just trade to trade. So I think that they definitely kicked the tires on many corners, but it just didn't make sense for them. And the trade that ended up making sense was Young. And I love the trade. I really do. I gave that trade an A+. I think the other trade for Gregory was also a no-brainer. But because they didn't address, in my opinion, the most important position of need for this team on the defense, which is corner, certainly right tackle or right guard, I guess, but those are nearly impossible to get at the trade deadline, although the Jags did get a guard and beefed up their line. But overall, I thought corner was the most pressing need. They were unable to make that happen. So I don't think that they won, to whereas other teams like the Eagles, Vish, you pointed them out, Seattle, they not only got good players, but they also addressed a position of need. So I would slightly grade them better, but I think the 49ers kept up with the Joneses for sure.
I got to wait to see too. I mean, a lot of this is going to be predicated on how or what the Niners get out of Womack and Luter. If Womack and Luter can't play dead, then the Niner grade goes down. I mean, the fact that they have those two guys on the roster, and I loved what I saw from Womack. I mean, Jesse, you were out there this summer. I don't know if you saw Womack the days you were there, but Womack, in my mind, looked phenomenal. He looked as good as Lenore looked as far as improvement from last year to this year. So I'm expecting Womack to play right away. In fact, I'd almost guarantee that he's better than Oliver, or the Niners are better with Oliver sitting and Womack outside and Lenore inside. And then Luter's the wild card because, he played for the South Alabama Jags or whatever. And I asked him in minicamp, I said, how do they utilize you? And he's like, solely, I mean, think about this. So usually you get used in a bunch of variety of ways, little zone, little off, little press man. He's like, I played exclusively press man. And when you watch his highlight reel, sure enough, I mean, they're playing cloud on the weak side. He's playing press man hugged up on the receivers. They need right now a big, long arm, dominant press man corner who can snuff out, players and play man to man. And they got a guy right there who should be able to do it. So I'm eager to see what that looks like. And hopefully he gets on the field and makes an impact.